I finished the first season of your show, The Boys, last night, and I was very surprised from beginning to end because it starts out as this superhero. I mean, I honestly thought it was going to be um, a superhero show, right? Like something along the lines of what we've seen. And then, I mean, very quickly, it turns into this. I mean, I was a little bit like, oh, oh yeah, ah.
Yeah.
Like it was so alarming how quickly it takes that turn, and then you realize, oh,
Yeah.
they're not superhero. Well, they're superheroes, but they're not good. They're not heroes. You look better than ever. I'm a little. You don't want to get me in those shirtless scenes anymore. I gotta tell you that much.
Oh, get out of here, baby. Come on. You look good. You look good. I saw you. Ben, buddy, I checked out season one of you a couple years ago, but watching season two last night, no, it's interesting to see you up there for one thing, and see a guy that I worked with for so long, just be on my TV screen again. But was it interesting for you, the show starting out at Lifetime and having a certain trajectory on that, and then being moved to a Netflix original and being in front of 100 million people sort of instantaneously, and that doesn't discount the show. It got great reviews, and it was a super viral hit. I mean, there's no way you could have seen the cultural phenomenon side of that coming. Was that an interesting experience for you to kind of move from one thing to the next and then see it blow up?
It actually, I think what I see now in retrospect is that it makes way more sense as a kind of cultural hit, as a cult hit, because I think when so few people were watching it on Lifetime, the network for women of all networks, it was. I think I was wondering about the moral ambiguity of it, and I know I've been transparent about my moral conflict playing this guy. So I think I felt much better about what we were doing once a lot of people were watching, not because I needed this sort of gratification of a lot of viewers, but more like, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense what we're
Mm.
doing, and it's people are responding to like the way we're coming into this conversation about the tropes of the romantic comedy and the tropes of the romantic white male lead,
Yeah, I gotcha. It definitely seemed like it switched gears to season two. I definitely noticed some differences there as well. But did you feel that like I don't know what do you call it, buzz or expectation coming into the second season
Yeah.
more? Was there more press opportunities and more obvious,
Yeah.
anticipation for season two?
I mean, the first season, dude, was so because we did the whole. I mean, now like on a streaming show, you make the whole thing before anybody's seen it. Or is it the same with yours?
It was the exact same. Not only did we
Yeah.
make it the first season, it got picked up for second season, and we did Comic Con. It still hadn't come out. We had no idea, so we knew that some
Wait, you know what? Actually,
in-house people liked it.
I think the same thing happened to us. I think we got picked up for a second season. I yeah, I think we got picked up for a second season before anybody had seen the first, and then it was like, oh, you know what? It's not doing too well on Lifetime. We're gonna have to pull back the second season, and then
Gotcha. Oh,
and then
okay,
it
that's what
and then it
happened.
went to
Wow, that's
Netflix.
interesting to me
Yeah,
because also, man, I mean, to be honest, yeah, yeah, we move on from gospel to playing despicable, murderous
yeah.
white male privileged guys. I mean, it's just the natural progression. No, but I
It's
had this.
really popular.
It's really, but yeah, it's a big hit these days. No, but I had the same qualms you did, and definitely, going into season two and it kind of already it dropping before that was a little bit of a, a way like okay, people are responding to this in at least a positive way, and they're getting it. You know what I mean? They're understanding it. So
What I really like about your character, which is for better or worse kind of similar to mine, is that you start out knowing just carte blanche how bad he is.
Yeah.
and I honestly for me too, man, not knowing the tone of the show, the first episode it continues to unfold and you're like, "Oh wait. Oh wait. Oh wait. Oh wait."
Yeah.
And honestly, before your character has his like, reveal and be in literally and
A
figuratively,
180 there.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly was like I was so excited to see you play this dignified superhero. and then and then I'm like, "Oh, oh man. Oh no, it just took such a turn." And then the whole
Where do they go
show is
from
actually
here?
sort of right. And I mean that's what mine is like. It's like they're both shows where immediately they take the trope they're working with. In your case it's a superhero. In my case I guess it's like the romantic male lead or the romantic comedy and the leads both male and female. And
Yeah.
then basically within the first episode it's bludgeoned it with a sledgehammer or, sexually assaulted it and it just goes down from there in a way which is it's quite interesting to see the commentary and satire that showrunners are most interested in now and that what audiences seem to be most interested in. It's like, you know what, we've seen the happy sweet saccharine stuff and now we're looking to deconstruct it all because we see kind of how it hasn't served us maybe. I think that's where both these shows are touching onto some kind of conversation.
I agree. I agree with you fully. And that actually, I had a question about that because I didn't, I haven't really followed it the whole time up until recently, but I didn't know if how you thought of it as a romantic comedy or the dark comedic elements because I was going to ask you, do you realize how funny you are in some of the moments? I mean, you're really good with some.
Yeah.
Outside of being a despicable character, I know you though. I know you so well that you really you got me on some of the moments, man. It adds that extra layer of entertainment to it, and it also sort of complicates my character for being obviously a total despicable evil guy, and there's some comedy there. He's almost pathetic. He's kind of almost a
Totally.
lovable
Yeah.
loser in some way for the deep, and it's kind of this weird gray area that you don't know what to feel.
Yeah, actually I found your character to be far more like kind of relatable and sweet. I mean, I think Joe, my character, has that obviously
Yeah,
some because that's what people seem to respond to. But your guy, I mean, especially because by the end he's being assaulted himself, which I have to say, I was like, there's something about a Gill that and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for anybody, but like it was so visceral because like you couldn't otherwise show such an intimate kind of like assault if we were dealing with actual human genitalia. But the fact that it's like this, so it becomes an allegory in a way where we're seeing like her penetrate you, and it's weird, man. It was hard to I was
it
surprised
was
at how
harder
hard
for me to
to watch it
watch than
was.
shoot. Even yeah, yeah, it
Really?
was tougher for me to even watch. And trust me, it was not fun to shoot either. With like the director leaning right in there and giving very
What did you,
specific notes.
how much of that was like what how did you what did you do? How much of that was prosthetic? How much of it was like CGI?
Yeah, it was a bunch. They did the actual prosthetics on my skin for the first part of the scene, and they had this great. I wish I could remember his name. I think it was Paul. They had a great special effects guy replicate this entire my entire torso down to like the little chest hair. And so I'm
Wow.
laying there, and I have my own fake torso on me with the gills that have a little bit more, a little bit more room. And he's behind
Yeah.
me, just pumping them with these air pumps, so they move. And then the director's right over me. I'm like, guys, I'm nauseous. Can I just get out of here? This
Yeah.
is terrible. It was, and they're directing her. It was a whole thing. But yeah, very one
I
of those
had
I'm
I had a
warn
I had a
people about.
similar thing where we had to make a prosthetic arm of my right arm, I think. Yeah, because I get my pinky cut off in the second
Yes.
episode. You missed that. But that was a bit surreal. Uh I what I love about the special effects guys who make these prosthetics is that they're so sweet and like really into the craft. That was my experience at least. They're like they
Yeah.
love horror, they love blood, they spray blood everywhere, but they're like such sweet dudes. like really,
Same
really into
thing.
the craft, this like old school craft of filmmaking. I thought that was
It's a whole
just
other
an
art
interesting
form. I mean,
dynamic.
yeah, it's a whole other art form. I'm like, walk in there, I'm like, I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. It's like, but that's their whole world, and yeah, it was just the gills for me. But it's interesting that those are the things that make that character feel insecure, right? He kind of grew up as a freak and doesn't feel like he was ever, the superhero, right? He's the fish guy. He's always trying to prove himself, and he's insecure. So
I don't even know. I don't know what I saw down there. As a matter of fact, it was really dark and the muddy water was really muddy. And I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't. I didn't really see anything down there. As a matter of fact.
It seems like what I thought was touching was the fact that I mean, you're obviously a very handsome man and in incredible shape. By the way, you're in better shape than ever, Chase. I was just watching, I was like, wow, I have really let it go.
a
Um,
lot of time
but
on my hands up there, Penn. A lot of time on my hands. So
but like when the deep doesn't want, does he have a human name?
it's Kevin. Yeah, it's actually Kevin. So
Well,
that
you clearly don't. That's funny.
I don't
Okay,
even know
so
his
but when
last
the
name, but they did kind
right,
of get to it in the first season. It's just Kevin. Yeah, it's great.
Kevin. So when Kevin, the deep, when this woman asks him to take off his suit, I don't know. It was just another moment where I was surprised by the vulnerability of your character. Where again, I think my character like plays at having vulnerability in a way,
Hmm.
um, but is probably has a well, definitely has a much deeper psychosis. I mean, your guy is actually trying. He's actually sort of redeeming himself and trying to save fish. Maybe not people, but he's trying to save fish, which is funny.
Yeah. At least
Whereas
it's
like
something.
my guy, he's got such a psychosis that I don't, as a viewer, see him as being at all as sweet or adorable as redeemable, you know. But then of course when I'm playing him, I guess maybe that's a question I have for you. I know that when I play Joe is a very different experience from watching Joe or thinking about Joe. You know,
Mm,
before they say action and after they say cut, I can have all of my own thoughts, but between action and cut, in order to play Joe, I just believe everything he says, just I
gotcha.
gotta believe it, right? When
That
you were
works. I mean,
when
yeah, that definitely worked.
when you were in that first episode, because you're the worst in the first episode. I mean, arguably, you go on this arc where like you really are changing, right? You're changing. But like in the
Yes,
first
yeah.
episode, that was such a like a dagger to the heart because he's so I mean he's so controlling. He's so unbelievably controlling of what is Starlight? That's her name, right? I mean, did you feel like you had trouble being that way? Did you feel like you had trouble judging the character and getting in your own way?
I did actually. It was kind of tough to do, and to be honest, it was in the comics, like that the very specific shot, like on one of the covers, and it was a big jumping off point for her character, and also as well as my arc, as well, and a bigger commentary on what they want to make on superheroes. Never meet your heroes, but that was not in the scene wasn't in the script, and I guess they kind of decided it was going to be my character, and they kind of dropped it on me. We were all in Toronto, like a few weeks out, and they were like, how do you feel about this? We want you. You're gonna have to do the scene, basically, kind of a thing. So I didn't know I was gonna do
Mm,
it, and so it was
wow.
the only scene that we actually really we rehearsed a lot. We got together and talked about it for like weeks beforehand, and we spent almost an entire day shooting it, and yeah, it was tough and it was weird, and but anyway, Erin Moriarty's such a great actress, and her and I had already become
Mm,
friends and felt comfortable. But yeah, I was a little bit interested to see like where is it going to go, from here, and how is that? How are we going to we're going to play that? But again, it was just kind of that thing where he's almost he just does that. He's done that his whole life. He's used that sort of modus operandi and manipulated people his entire life, and it's kind of he's almost like shocked, like what, like he doesn't really see
Yeah.
what's that all that bad about it, and so obviously he gets some comeuppance later, but yeah, but it's that gray area is sort of what I think they wanted to play with, and it's not
So
so black and white.
so how much of his that that really awful strain of white privilege, of male privilege, how much of that, if that scene where he basically like, because you don't see the assault itself, but you see this sort of, well, I guess actually
Implied.
you do. No, you see you see one form of it, and then it's implied that it goes on. So
Exactly.
if that wasn't in the script, how much of him did you know? Like how did you know that he was supposed to be just generally like uh
Well, there was they actually had another scene in there. Now that I'm remembering it, where he assaulted her physically in a different way, and there was like he was, if I remember, yeah, it was some type of drug, and he was on drugs, and he sort of physically
mm,
harmed her in a more forceful way, not sexually. So that was kind of in there, and that's what I
oh,
thought we
okay.
were going to be doing, but
Okay, so it's right, okay.
it switched, but yeah, I didn't really fully know where they were going to go with it. We maybe got in the first like three scripts. So,
Yeah.
um, but that's what's interesting about Joe as well. We know who this guy is, like right out the gate. And it's almost, I mean, maybe not right out the gate, but it's almost
20 minutes in,
like
at least.
I was reading some of your interviews. It's interesting how it is almost like an odd continuation of Dan. You know what I mean? Where
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
and you know what I mean? Like at the end of Gossip Girl, the show, whatever your reaction is on whether it was smart to do that or not, that he's Gossip Girl. You know what I mean? We kind of, he's kind of been, it didn't really line up with the character of Dan, right? And
Yeah.
I just find it interesting that Joe, we kind of know who this guy is. You guys, as a show, really, really kind of go for that. And it, you kind of know what you're in for. And it's just interesting why people like continue want to continue watching that and see where it goes. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah, man.
is it
I mean,
torture porn? Is it shock value? I mean, people love it. So
it's all of those things and more. I mean, I think it's emblematic of our times because, back in 2007, I mean, dude, 2007, like that's a long time ago when we were,
yeah,
just boys. Um, it
our skin
like
is
like
glowing, buddy.
people
You look
wanted to
good.
watch a show like Gossip Girl, and because it was aspirational, it was like it was escape. It was escapism. It's like, yeah, it seemed like it struck a certain cultural chord because it was this aspirational, fantastical vision of excess and wealth. And it's like, man, what must that be like? But now, cut to 10, 13 years later, people are not interested in that. And I think rightfully
Yeah,
so. Now they're interested in deconstructing why we're so fascinated with that in the first place. We're interested in
gotcha.
deconstructing those systems of privilege, if you will. And I'm not saying that our television shows are doing that, but I'm saying that's what people are more interested in. So therefore, these shows reflect that. Because back in 2007, you also were probably, I'm trying to think, that was sort of the beginning of the arc of a lot of the comic book hero stuff too. I mean, it definitely wasn't the way that it is
Absolutely.
now, where we've seen every version of every hero imaginable. We've seen the universe turn to dust like three times, you know.
I know. I mean, that's why I found the show interesting because I've seen all the superhero stuff. Been a fan since I was a kid. It's just there is a bit of oversaturation, and I was hoping that people would clue in on the satirical nature of it. Just the what if the superheroes are bad, and it is darkly comedic and also harrowing at times. There's some messed up stuff that happens in the season, but it is interesting to flip it on its head and still have some elements of that while showing that these guys are total assholes, or that it's the
Yeah.
curtain sort of drop. But back in 07, 09, Gossip Girl was edgy back then. It's some.
I know, man. I know. That's
If you
funny
think
because
about it.
it really was. And now, I mean, I haven't seen it in so long. It would be very interesting to watch it now. Have you seen it recently?
Buddy, I mean, that was on the question list. I was going to ask you. I mean, you'd have to strap me to a gurney and pop my eyes open like Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if there's, but no, it would
I
actually be interesting to see like
I
the first
know
couple maybe.
I know that I watched an episode with my now wife, with Domino, before we got married. It must have been it must have been like, I don't know, 6 months after we met or something. She had never seen it and that's the last time I can remember seeing an episode. And I remember even then, it has nothing to do with the show, but I was just sort of, it was very hard to watch because I felt like, these snapshots of yourself when you're 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. I mean, who 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 can enjoy that? Like, it's sometimes it's just, it's uncomfortable. It's like, man, oh, I can see how self-conscious I was. I can see so
Yeah, of
much.
course, exactly. I don't like really watching myself that much in general. So to go back and open that time capsule, I mean, we lived it. I think there would
Mm.
be some nostalgic value possibly to. So we're doing that when you come to LA. We'll have a drink. We'll watch.
Of a watching party, a
We'll catch
viewing
up over
party.
season one. Yeah, it's great.
Dude, if we live tweeted a viewing of any episode of Gossip Girl, people would love that. Are you kidding?
What's
If
funny?
we like,
That's another interesting point. We didn't have to deal with all that. Remember, '07
no,
was
man.
when the very first iPhone came out. I remember you guys. I
Yeah.
remember you had it at a Halloween party. You had the first iPhone. And think about that now. I mean, now there was I remember we were about camera phones and this and that. I mean, there
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
social
I didn't
media.
even
There
want it.
wasn't.
Blake got me that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember. I remember you
I mean,
guys
I
had it.
literally was like, I don't want this thing. Like, it's so cumbersome, and it has all these like apps. It has apps on it.
Yeah, yeah.
But man, and I even remember
That's
meeting a publicist that first season, and she was talking about this thing called Twitter. And
uh-huh.
and as she explained Twitter, I was like, what is this nonsense? This is like, I don't want to
Yeah,
have a Twitter account and you tweet. What is this bird thing?
yeah.
Like like explaining it to me, which is why I'm not a technological genius, but like explaining it to me was such a foreign concept, and I was just so patently uninterested. That's something that actually years later, man, I think we got to give credit to Gossip Girl. Like, it was in a way like a futuristic concept. It was
It was
trying to
ahead of its
get
time
at
in a way.
social media
Yeah,
before social media.
it really was. I mean, it really tapped into something interesting on the cusp of it all changing. I mean, Instagram came out after, but I'm like, why would I want to put my life out there? I'm trying to crawl into my hermit shell. I'm a Cancer.
Yeah,
Why am I trying to?
right.
But now we're all partaking. It's a part of the
Oh man.
business, right?
When do you have, forgive me, I don't follow you. You must have social media accounts now, right?
We should follow. See, this is the thing. I should follow
I know
you.
we
I
should
don't even
follow
pay
each other, man.
attention. What are we doing?
I know.
I mean, be making millions now. We should be. I resisted for so long, and then I'm like, God, I should. Now you see where it goes. I was, trying to be a little
Yeah,
too cool for school. We could be, be
I know.
making some money. No,
We
I'm
could have
teasing, but
we could have Rihanna level followers. Actually, it's probably not true. Rihanna's really gonna pass
we
it
could have
around.
been. Ashley
But
could have been onto something. We could have been the first. Put the stake in, we'd have 100 million. The original
yeah,
Kardashians. No, but I think I got it in 2015. I mean, way late.
yeah, me too.
Like five years ago is the time I got the public one. So yeah, I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow you right now.
I'm doing this on my phone, otherwise I would follow you right now. I'll follow you after.
Can you tell me if this Carl Jung book is vegan?
If the book is?
New here. Huh.
Does everyone in LA walk around like they own the place?
You got me. I just started this week. The books are made from trees. I'm pretty sure those are vegan.
I'm just messing with the old sport.
I just think it's interesting on your show, and maybe I only know this because I caught an article on my Apple News feed or something. But now there's like a conversation I thought was interesting about romantic comedies of the past you know,
Mm,
weaving in stalking in a much more sort of maybe more subtle and insidious way. Like I'm trying to think of examples, but at the beginning of the first episode of season two, when Joe's looking through the telescope and he sees Love reading the book, and you realize he's reading the same book in another show or timeline or tone. That could be totally played off as being a very cute, adorable, like charming thing to do, right? And I
that's
think it's
true.
funny you
Yeah.
guys play with that line a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think well, first of all, I mean, the person who sort of initiated the whole thing, the generating impulse for it, is Caroline Kepnes, who wrote the book series, both You and Hidden
That's
Bodies.
right. Yeah.
And I think she was playing with that in its own way, probably more. I mean, what you're able to do in a book is obviously very different from any other medium, you know? I mean, the whole thing is from his perspective. It's like you walk into the bookstore and you are wearing a green sweater, and I can see that you are not wearing a bra, like all that kind of stuff. That's the
Uh
entire
huh.
book is from his perspective. So some of the things that I think translated nicely but are different is the way that we're inside Joe's mind is through his narration. And then also it is
Hmm.
what you're mentioning, this in a way it is satire. I think it's probably funny. I don't know. I don't have like I hope it's funny. I think it's meant to be funny. And
I
chilling at
think it
times
is,
too.
man. That's what I was wrong. Like, I hope other people think this
Yeah.
is funny. I think some of it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way,
Um.
that is what I think was less clear when the show was on Lifetime. It was like, okay, where is this tone landing for people? You know, because almost
Yeah.
like there wasn't enough of a testing pool. And then once it became a hit, it was like, all right, the tone makes sense. The tone is coherent. There is humor, and it is very dark, and there's some stuff that's very scary, but ultimately it's coherent, you know?
Yeah. On ours
Um,
too. To be honest with you, I was very. I think we were all worried when we were shooting what the tone was really going to look like, mainly because there's also like 20 different characters in our show, and the Deep's on his own
yeah.
movie, and you got the boys that are their own movie. It's like a shot differently, superhero, right? Well, our stuff is kind of good. Like, how is this all gonna,
Mm,
it's dark and it's messed up, and there's assault, and it's funny too. Like, how is that all gonna work? So, um, but yeah, I figured some people got the dark comedy of you because you play it really really well. So,
well, that's
um,
always been, I mean, I feel like what we did on Gossip Girl all the time was we would joke about how else we could play it if we were kind of like on a different show. And in a way, I feel like we've had the opportunity to do that now. You know, we're both playing like these sort of emblematic guys, these sort of iconic level sort of characters, but now they're both terrible. And I mean,
yeah.
the truth is not that much has changed. It's just that it's a different lens onto them, you know,
But I was
which
actually going to
changes
ask you
the whole
too.
thing.
Yeah, it was part of my question. Like, was there like a refreshing, maybe refreshing is wrong. Well, yeah, maybe like a refreshing, redemptive, or like a refreshing element to getting to kind of stretch your legs and have a little bit of
Definitely.
there's a little bit of an fu moment. Like I'm doing this character. It's kind of in your face. I'm doing what I want. You know what I mean? Was there a little bit of that or?
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to be both transparent and forthcoming and also like uh very respectful and grateful of the way that Gossip Girl positioned me to sort of be in a role like this and and for it to have the particular effect that it has. Because it's interesting that, you know, regardless of my performance, the fact that it's simply me, you know, who ended just one of the main characters of a show called Gossip Girl, you know, and then I ended up being Gossip Girl, even though, you know, we can debate about whether or not that makes sense. And we can debate about whether or not Dan is even like really a male lead in the show because the heart of the show was somewhere else. But anyway, it's me, you know, playing this guy Joe, and it makes a lot of sense in a way. It makes a lot of sense. It
Uh-huh.
was one of the things that made me even think. The funny thing is I didn't get excited to be like, oh, this is such a different and interesting take on a similar vibe. I was, if anything, at that point, too self-conscious about that. And I was inclined to be like,
Yes.
this is, I know it seems quite different, but in a way, it's almost like Dan just with bloody hands. Like, I don't know.
I hear you. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think what became really gratifying is like, as you get into, especially, I think, season two, especially the second half of season two, like episodes really 7 through 10, which I think you really start to see Joe both try to change and get worse, and I don't know, it gets into the psychosis of this stuff at a really detailed level, and I had a lot. I think now, like now that I've done 2 seasons, I really feel that I feel like I've now run. Like I do feel like I've gotten to stretch my legs. I feel like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, there's like this whole new body of work where I've gotten to experiment and almost comment on my previous body of work, which is, I don't know, man. I mean, I wouldn't have anticipated it. I wouldn't have,
Hmm.
if I'd even tried to plan it that way, I would think, you're playing with fire there, buddy. But it worked.
I hear
So,
you. Hey, I watched 7 through 10 last night, man, and I mean, on the LSD trip, did you do some research? I mean, how'd that all?
in
Bro,
my
your
early
performance
20s, I
is
did plenty of
amazing,
research.
man.
I did. Thanks, man.
You're
No,
your performance
I
was great.
had
I
so
mean,
much
when her eyes
fun.
got big, I freaked out. It was definitely they did it very
I
well
did I did that
visually
all
as
on my
well.
own.
Yeah.
I made her eyes big with my performance. You've
Yeah.
never seen anything like it. Um,
Yeah, and then I don't know if you're writing as well, but on the side and writing your own scripts. But I feel like 40 was onto something. I think the only way to get a script done is with a gun to your head. Is someone forcing you into a
yeah.
hotel
Well,
room, and
maybe that'll work. That's the one method I haven't tried. Maybe that's why we haven't done a script
yeah,
yet.
pay some Russians to lock you in the room. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. But
How did you feel?
um,
Like that kind of brings to mind how every show we've been a part of, the ones we're on now, the one we were on together, but then every show, they're often what I've come to accept and enjoy more now that I've matured as an actor, particularly in television, is how like you come across these really absurd situations, these really, really kind of like it's ridiculous. I mean, it really is
mhm.
ridiculous. Like that episode 8, the acid trip. If you try to think about it rationally, it's convoluted and it gets into this really arch kind of drama stuff that if we didn't do it right, it could fall flat. And similarly with you, like talking to lobsters, which again, I found it's like such a funny, like if you didn't do it right, it would fall so flat, but it works.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
especially
Somehow.
because you're seeing a guy who's like legitimately going through a depression and but he has this like very touching relationship with these creatures that you got to think are in some way more pure. And so
Exactly,
anyway,
exactly.
the point, like my question is, how do you feel often when you first read something like that? Like when you first read that he's actually starting to have conversations with fish, like is your reaction initially like, how am I going to do that? Or did you start to be like, you know what? I actually love that. I'm like so down.
It was the latter, man. I loved that. It was part of that was in the audition scene, and so I knew there was a dark element. I didn't quite know how dark, but I also loved this ridiculous aspect to it where his only friends are like the local lobster man down in the down down at the local pier. He can only go down there, and that's his only friends. And they take that joke even a little bit further in season 2 coming out this year. Um but yeah, no, I loved it, man. I really, the chance to incorporate some comedy, and I think at least in the audition, I was just trying to make Kripke laugh a little bit, and
Mm.
they really let me run with it too, which was a kind of a whole new experience for me.
After all, who are you?
I'm one of the 7.
And what does that mean?
Can do anything I set my mind to.
What do you want to set your mind to?
did you have any improv? Or I know it was based on a book, so maybe it was pretty strictly to the script. But yeah, I don't know if.
You know, I think actually where I improv most, ironically, is in the voiceover booth.
Oh, interesting.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, only because it's like there's so much voiceover, and I developed a trust with the co-creators Greg Berlanti and Sarah Gamble, namely Sarah
Hmm.
Gamble, who's really she's the one at the helm. Um, they really trust me to go in there. I go in there alone, save the engineer and the co-producer there, and I get almost no direction sometimes. Like I just go through an entire episode, and then there are certain beats as I'm going through the episode where, and we've not shot it yet generally. So I'm going through the episode, and it's like as it comes out of my mouth, you realize, this is maybe there's something about this logic beat, which is there's often so many different kind of layers of a moment because he's saying one thing to the person he's in the scene with. He's thinking another
Hmm.
about them, but also this person who maybe he's killed and they're in the trunk of his car. Meanwhile, he's like tweeting or texting or something to sort of cover it up. And then he's also thinking
Yeah.
about what he's going to do in the next scene. You know what I mean?
It's a
Like you can
lot.
see how kind
Yeah,
of
man.
it is a lot. It is really a
Well, they
lot
make it
all at
so
once. And
seamless that no one
sometimes
realizes how difficult that is to do. You know what I mean? I always know I'm like, man, like you do it so seamlessly, and that's interesting. You said that you record it without shooting. I thought it might be opposite. I thought you shoot it and you do it like ADR, where you're watching it and timing it. I didn't know how you did that.
actually, they can't edit. They can't really get, they can't even, I don't know how far they can get, but they can't get very far in the editing process of an episode without at least a sketch track, a sketch vocal track of the voiceover. So, you know,
Gotcha.
there are times where, you know, on my lunch break, they're like, we're sorry, man, but we're trying to lock episode 7, and like we need this scene, you know, or what, you know, whatever it might be. It, so the voiceover is actually like, I feel like that's my largest contribution in this show
Mm.
is it's almost like I'm a voiceover actor first. And then basically, dude, I mean, the rest of the time I'm just staring. And then and then I look over here, you know, and then I look down and then there's an insert of the phone or whatever. You know, I mean, really I think a lot of my work is in the voiceover booth. And so
It
I
is. It's
improv
hard. It's really good
not a
work.
lot, but I do improv. I mean, I give them a lot of I love like my sense of humor. I love to play with the turns of phrase. And, you
Yeah.
know, I'm sure that 95% of it is theirs, but I get some of mine in there and some of them work quite well. It's just like really trying to add my touch and I think sometimes I laugh because I'll give them so many alts of this of a given line because I'm like, oh, that's really funny. It's definitely headed somewhere. Let me see if I can sharpen it or let me see if I can change it. Let me see if I, you know, and a lot of times it's
Yeah. Yeah.
stupid, but
Yeah.
I have to develop a trust even with the engineer because sometimes what I'm going
It's an
for is
art to it.
so dumb. Well, it's like if it's gonna work, it's gonna work. But if it's bad, it's dumb. And so I actually have to develop this confidence where I'm like, all right, whoever's gonna listen to this later, and the engineer right here with me now, I can't worry about looking stupid, you know? Like there was even in episode
Yeah.
6 of season 1 where I was singing parts of the voiceover, and there's a little bit of it that's in there, just a little bit. It's like he's talking and then it like goes into this song because it's just ridiculous. So anyway.
People don't know your musical talents, though. You should push that. You should push that, buddy. Or maybe they do,
Dude,
actually. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like even for you, you're still just scratching the surface of your. Remember when we were shooting, I just wanted, and I feel like the whole cast of Gossip Girl, the whole crew felt like if you could be given some leeway in your bizarre brand of humor, that it would just be
Yeah.
like such a phenomenal hit. I mean, because still, dude, still, I feel like there's so much of your comedic um lens that I'm sure I guess you know your coworkers on the boys have seen it, but I feel like you are a comedic well just waiting to be tapped.
Thank you, man. No, I've finally gotten to let it fly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's been fun. I remember I did in Gossip Girl. I remember like our scenes in particular were maybe the only ones that I tried to work it in, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, I think I had the most some of the most fun moments are like the Nate and Dan scenes. You know what I mean? I always try to
definitely,
work it
man.
in there, but they you know
Well, Nate was a
they
tough
didn't.
character because you were such the straight guy. You were just such the like, it's kind of like he was so perfect that he only had anywhere to go but down. He like,
Yeah,
and he just, yeah, he was like not the humorous spoil.
yeah. Always punching his dad. You know, it's just always punching the captain. Oh
Oh,
man. No, those were good days though, man. I don't even remember what our like first moment was on set. I mean, I remember the Palace Hotel, but I don't really
oh,
remember.
and that was
I
our
know that
first
was
time in
down
New
here.
York, really, too.
Oh, it was definitely my first time like experiencing New York, and
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we really got the red carpet right away. You know, it was
that was remarkable, man. It feels like another lifetime to me. Like when I
it
think of being at the Palace Hotel, that just feels like I feel like a different person. It feels like another world, another life. It's pretty wild.
I'm trying to remember the name of the. I think his name was Pete, like the manager there, who would
Yes,
always
dude, Pete.
would
Yeah,
take care. Was it Pete? I wish I knew his last
yeah.
name. He was the best, but he'd always like we're sitting there, you know, in the courtyard in between takes. He'd just come and be like, "Camera loves you," and just like walk away. You know what I mean? By the way, camera loves you, and just like kind of like
He,
slow on
dude,
by. You know?
he's the one who when Blake and I went there to eat, like we were like eating. It probably was when we were shooting there. We
Uh-huh.
uh got like a grilled cheese sandwich and suggested. I was just like, I was they had a grilled cheese sandwich there called the Gossip Girl grilled cheese sandwich, and I
I
was like, oh,
remember
you should
that.
just
I
call it the
remember that.
and I was just like, you should just call it the Gossip Grill. And then he was like, took the menu from me, and he went back, printed it, changed the name right there, printed a different menu, and handed me a new menu with my suggestion. And I was like, okay, this is a way to live. Okay, all right.
The new kids won't get that treatment, man. There's just no way. The remake, there's no way the new ones get
Yeah,
that.
dude, I'm so interested to see what it's like. I'm so interested. I wish him well. I really am also interested to see how people react to it.
It'll be interesting, yeah, for sure. Also because and now we're all both on shows that like I kind of wish we did 10 actually. We only did 8, but 8 to 10 compared to what we did, it was like 20, sometimes 25, 26 episodes. I mean, looking
Mm,
back, I don't know how I
that's
feel
right.
because looking back on it, 26 was good in a way. I mean, because we're in New York, right? So I like that aspect, and the paycheck side is good, but there was obviously less time to do other stuff. Do you enjoy now though, especially having a family, probably being shooting 10 episodes? Is it like more half a year or something, 6 months?
Yeah, it takes about 5.5 months to
Yeah,
shoot
us
10
too.
episodes. And I mean, I don't I don't prefer working like 10.5 months out of the year, 5 days a week, 12 to 13 to 16 hours a day. Like
Exactly.
the way that it is on a 26 episode network television show like Gossip Girl was. I
Yeah.
don't desire that ever again because the hours are just so, I mean, trying to have a family, like now that I have a family, you know, it's it's insane. It's just insane. But at the same time, only doing only working like 5.5 months out of the year, to me, I mean, that just means that there's a lot of other ways to not just fill up the time, but to be truly productive. Um,
Hmm.
so that's another conversation. I definitely have some things in the pipeline that I'm developing, but until they
Nice,
exist,
man.
until they exist, I don't really want to like talk about it on Variety. That's for sure.
No, hey, if there's one thing clear, man, we're due for a catch up. So we'll definitely, catch
Yeah,
up even more in depth after this, man. So But yeah, and I forget too. You're working. I mean, on that show, you're like in every shot, every scene almost, right? So it's probably a little bit different
Dude,
than my experience.
well, I mean, it's different from any role I've had before because
Yeah, like
it's
every
like he's
shot.
just in every scene. Even the scene that he's not in, it reveals at the end he's in it because he's watching.
Yeah,
Like there's like
you
three
can't get
scenes
out
or
of it.
four scenes a season that he seems like he's not in, but the truth is he's either like watching or he's actually later in the second season they developed a kind of model where you were starting to see other scenes with more people. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that in both seasons I had 3 days off, maybe. And
Wow,
in
wow.
I mean, that's not a lot, right? And then a lot of that time is taken up with voiceover work, and so
Hmm.
it's a grueling. Like if this show was 26 episodes, I'd die. I would pass out. I would like it's a very like by the end of a season of playing Joe, I am just spiritually, emotionally, physically like spent,
Yeah.
in a way that I've never experienced that before.
I'm a pescatarian ignoramus. Are you okay? You look a little.
No. Too soon, too much, too good.
And were you guys about to shoot season 3 before all the obviously the coronavirus stuff hit, or what was that at?
Well, actually, we were gonna right about now. I would have been moving out to LA for 5-6 months,
So you're gonna be back in
and
LA for season 3. That's great.
but you guys finished season two already. You're saying, right?
Yeah, we ours about 5.5 months too. We shot it in Toronto, and we finished it about mid-November. Yeah, so right before the
Mm,
holidays. And then we haven't heard it like officially official season 3 thing. We're hearing good stuff. Again, I don't know. I don't know what that's gonna look like coming down. So
yeah,
you
man.
know,
So strange.
but when we did end the show, I remember I had this really state where I mean it was. I mean, you probably had a similar experience where you had to like decompress, right, from sort of the whole thing. But when it all ended, and I kind of made the decision to leave New York, and it was kind of a hasty decision. And at the time,
Mm,
I got back to LA, and I kind of regretted it. I got a little depressed, and the city was such a big part of my early 20s, and in a lot of ways, our college experience, and it was 5.5, 6 years of our lives at that sort of golden time, growing up where you sort of form your identity. I do have a big heart for New York, man. I miss it. I miss it. I miss it quite a bit, even though I've made
mm,
peace with Los Angeles. But I do miss that city, man.
yeah. I mean, I think if you spend enough time there, it's always a part of you in a way. I ended up being there for 13 years, just straight, without any real. This is the longest I've been out of the city.